I'm Vitalia. I work for the Department of Health. I'm based at the Embassy and I work on access to healthcare.
Giorgio?
Hello, welcome. I'm Giorgio, caseworker at IOM UK National Support Fund.
And last but by no means least, Jerry.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name's Jerry Williams and I work at the British Embassy on citizens' rights.
We're going to have questions fed through to us. We have to acknowledge at the outset that we probably won't be able to answer everybody's questions, but we will take as many as we possibly can. We will be trying to sort of stick broadly to subject. So if we have questions that are about something entirely different, we may not get to them. But we'll do our best as ever to cover as many as we can, and we hope that this evening is a useful session to you all. Jerry, do you want to introduce the session just with a brief sort of summary of where things stand, particularly about the biometric card?
Yeah, sure. So as Aidan said, tonight's session, we're very much focusing on this new biometric residency card. So I'm just going to say a few words about it before we start answering your questions. So for UK nationals who are living in Italy before the 1st of January 2021, and were fulfilling freedom of movement directive criteria, the Italian government has made available a new biometric residency card. It's available from your local questura and it's issued under the withdrawal agreement. I'm going to say from the very outset, it's not mandatory. Your rights under the withdrawal agreement don't depend on holding this new card. However, our advice is very much that UK nationals should obtain the new card. And there's a simple reason for that, which is it basically gives you your clearest evidence of your rights under the withdrawal agreement. So if you need to show your withdrawal agreement status, say at the border, say when accessing services, healthcare, or for any other reason, there's lots of ways of doing that, but probably the easiest way of doing it is with the biometric residency card, now available from your local questura. So I'm sure we're going to talk this evening, Aidan, about how to get it, what documents you might need to show, how to get in touch with your questura, all of that. So looking forward to your questions. But I would say just one other thing. In Italy, we have the joy of having a lot of documents available to us. There are EU residency documents, so you might already hold an attestato, you might already hold attestazione di soggiorno permanente if you're a permanent resident here. You might have been very quick off the mark and got yourself a withdrawal agreement attestazione, which was made available last year. So you might have all of those some or all of those documents. You still should get the biometric residency card. It's completely new residency document. And don't confuse it with the Italian identity card. I think there is confusion with that because that's also a biometric card where you give fingerprints. It's a little bit of plastic you can put in your wallet, but that's not the same thing. An identity card is not mandatory. It's not issued under the withdrawal agreement status. So it really has nothing to do with your withdrawal agreement biometric residency card. So there's this one document that we're talking about this evening, but obviously very happy to also take questions about some of those other documents that I've referred to as well. I hope that helps, Aidan.
Great, thank you, Jerry. That sets the scene. Let's take some questions. The first question relates to dual nationals, and David Bell's asking whether we recommend that dual UK and EU nationals living in Italy should get the new biometric card.
If I can kick off on that, because we often get questions from dual nationals, very understandably. If you're a dual UK-Italian national, you're required by law to register your residency through your Italian nationality. So if you also hold Italian nationality, you will, or you should, register as a resident as an Italian national. So Italy basically views you as an Italian national. And therefore, you won't get the biometric card. You won't get the new biometric card because Italy considers you as an Italian national. That doesn't mean you don't enjoy withdrawal agreement rights, but you don't need the card, the withdrawal agreement card, in the same way as a UK national who only has UK nationality does. However, if you are a UK other EU nationality, correct me if I'm wrong, Giorgio, but I think you have a choice how you register your residency. You can choose to register with your UK nationality, or you can register, let's say, with your German nationality or your French nationality. If you choose to register your residency through your UK nationality, so as a UK national, because you keep your UK nationality with most other other nationalities, then you can get the biometric card, because Italy views you as a UK national. You're registered in the system as a UK national. So therefore, you can request the new withdrawal agreement biometric card, because that also will give you evidence of your status under the withdrawal agreement. But just without wishing to overcomplicate things, if you don't get the biometric card because you're registered here as an Italian national, but you've got UK nationality, that doesn't mean you don't have rights under the withdrawal agreement. It just means you haven't got that card that's issued under the withdrawal agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Is that have I covered everything, Giorgio? Do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, can I just jump in?
Go.
One little thing. Of course, if you register with your EU nationality, with your EU citizenship, you are considered as a EU national, so you can vote in local election, and you have access to all rights as an EU national.
Yeah, great, thank you. Very quickly, a second question, which relates directly to the card, of course. If you've not applied for your withdrawal agreement attestazione, question from Alex Whiting, is it too late?
It's never too late. You can apply for your attestazione di iscrizione anagrafica now. You must contact your ufficio anagrafe. And if you have troubles with your official anagrafe, please get in touch with IOM and we will contact your comune on your behalf. You have absolutely right to obtain the attestazione di iscrizione anagrafica now.
Great, thank you. Emily Byers asks, children, British children, but with Italian residency, and in this case under 5, can they get the card? What happens with small children?
It's such a coincidence. We just talked about children under the age of 6 with Jerry. They should get the card, but there is no requirement for their fingerprints, of course. So they should definitely, if you book an appointment, you should book an appointment for you and your children as well. From the age of 6 above, they need to get fingerprinted. From 6 under, they don't need to be fingerprinted.
Okay, I've got a question from somebody who's concerned about the situation from Sue in Matera, concerned about the fact that neither she or her partner have had their vaccinations, and they're worried about whether that if they don't go to Matera until after they've had their vaccinations, and therefore there's a delay in them trying to get the card, whether that's going to be a problem. I suppose that's a question a little bit about, is there a time limit on this thing, and do people need to start planning now, or getting worried now, or can they actually relax for a while?
There is no...
sorry,
Javi.
No. No, I mean, I was just going to say it's a really good question because, we're aware that, UK nationals very understandably want to get this card as soon as possible, even though it's not mandatory, because they want the best evidence they can have of their rights under the withdrawal agreement. But there isn't a deadline, a formal deadline in that sense. So don't fret too much. If you're registered here as a resident, you've got one of those documents I referred to before, an EU residency document, an attestato, an attestazione from the anagrafa, you've already got evidence under the withdrawal agreement. The card is an additional thing to have. I would just say, in addition to that, be aware of being outside of the country too long, because if you're resident in Italy as a temporary resident, you don't want to be out of Italy for more than 6 months because you could lose your residency status and therefore you wouldn't be eligible to get this new card. If you're a permanent resident in Italy, you can be out of Italy for up to 5 years and not lose your residency status in Italy, and therefore you'd still be eligible to get the card. So the only thing I would say is just be careful if you're actually out of the country, be careful of how long. Sorry, does that cover everything?
Great, thank you. I've got a question here about contacting the Questura, actually, from Nigel. It's necessary to have a PEC to request an appointment for the card, but he's saying that to request a PEC, they don't accept towns in the UK as a place of birth, only towns in the EU. Is there a PEC provider that doesn't have this restriction? I don't recall having that problem when I got my PEC, but it was last year. So I'm not sure if that's a common problem or not.
I've never heard about it. It would be very strange if you need to be born in Italy. So there are many PEC providers, so you may search online for a different PEC provider, but we definitely recommend to get a PEC account to contact your local Questura. PEC is a certified email address to communicate with local authorities, which is extremely helpful. Okay,
thank you. There are a number of questions about when the actual card will be ready. And I guess some of us have already started asking that question ourselves as we've gone to register some time ago. What's the news on that, as far as we know?
So we don't have a set time frame or a time period in which the card will actually be issued. I mean, we are obviously working with the Italian government to ensure that we've got the very latest information from them. As soon as we know more, we will certainly put information out on our social media channels. I mean, what I would say is if you've requested the new card, you should have been given a receipt of your request. If you've already registered, as I say, you've probably already got, you've already got a residency document anyway. But in addition to that, you should have a receipt from your Questura of the fact you've made a request. And, keep that safe. That's evidence of your request. And, the card hopefully will be coming along shortly. I mean, this is a brand new card for the Italian authorities to issue to UK nationals. It was made available from the 1st of January. These are still fairly early days. I mean, I understand people's appetite is very strong to actually have the card in their wallet, as it were. But, this is a brand new system for Italy to implement in terms of issuing this brand new card to UK nationals. But we're very much engaged on this and discussing that with the Italian government.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Patricia Clark asks whether getting the new card will determine her ability to renew her electronic Italian health services card. Vito, anything on that?
Well, I mean, one thing that we should say is that, as Jerry rightly pointed out, is that the card is not an obligatory document to have. So when you go to your local health authority to renew your healthcare registration, for example, if you have an annual registration, not a permanent one, you shouldn't be asked to provide the biometric card in order to have your healthcare registration renewed. We had some issues in this sense, and we know that the Ministry of Health has issued further guidance to confirm to local health authorities that the biometric card is not the only way to prove that you're covered under the withdrawal agreement. There are other ways. So it shouldn't be necessary for you to get the biometric card to obtain any services from your local health authority. Any residency document should be okay.
Okay, great.
And accepted. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would say, Vito, if you agree, we could add that if you are having trouble, if you are getting told in any area, actually, whether it's healthcare or accessing services, or maybe from an employer, or a third party who says you can't do what you want to do unless you hold this biometric card, and you feel that you absolutely have rights under the withdrawal agreement, do definitely get in touch with us. And you can get in touch with us via our Living in Italy page on gov.uk.
Yes.
Okay. Elaine Sharp asks, to get the new card, do we have to give up our residency documents? How can we make sure we keep our residency certificates? Because we're nervous about obviously giving existing documents up. And obviously, given the delay in actually having your hands on the new card, That sounds like a very pertinent question.
Yeah, very interesting actually. The Questura can request the original of your attestazione di iscrizione anagrafica or your certificato di residenza. What we recommend is to make good color copies of your attestazione, of your residency certificate, and to show them to your local Questura. In case they ask for the original, you have to surrender your original attestazione or your original residence certificate.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I suppose, is it helpful, Georgia, to think that, you know, once you've got your card, that's your key residency document?
That's your key residency.
So you don't, I can see why there's nervousness. You know, everybody wants to keep as many documents as they can, and having copies sounds really, really sensible. But once you've got the card, you know, it'll either be valid for 5 or 10 years. That's not your rights. That's just a bit of plastic, and you know you can renew it. But that would be your key, you know, evidence of your status in Italy.
Is the clearest evidence of your rights under the withdrawal agreement. So it's the best you can get.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions about some problems, some glitches. Tim on the Venezia Questura, who are saying they can't issue the new card as they're still waiting for instructions from the Ministry of Immigration. Now, I'm not sure whether that's can't issue the actual card, but can offer appointments, or whether it's can't do anything. And then Jack from Milan is saying that there are real problems with this. There's a link to book appointments, but the link doesn't actually provide the possibility of an appointment, and emails don't get responses. So how do we get hold of Milan and arrange an appointment? I don't know, Giorgio, whether you can comment on either.
First Milan.
Venice or Milan.
Yeah, let's start with Milan. The only way to book an appointment is by sending a PEC to the dedicated PEC address of the Questura di Milano, not by using the Prenota Facile website, which is not working for UK nationals asking for the biometric card. So please write a PEC to the dedicated PEC address of Questura di Milano. On the Living in Italy webpage, you can find the list of Questura and their dedicated PEC addresses. Regarding Venice, we are not aware of issues with issuing the card. Maybe there are some delays in booking appointments. This may depend on if the area has a large British population, for example. But if you have troubles in booking the appointment with Venice, please get in touch with us, get in touch with IOM, and we will verify this directly with the Questura di Venezia.
Okay, thank you.
And I think at Questura, they have a dedicated, like you say, Georgia, there's a dedicated PEC email address, and it's the same, it's pretty much the same format for every Questura. So you should be able to, so you should be able to spot which is the one that you need to use. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Carol says she and her husband are working in Avellino, or living in Avellino, but they're about to move into Naples. Should we still get our card now or wait until we've moved?
I would recommend, this depends on your current residency document. So if you're applying with your attestazione di iscrizione anagrafica and you change address, so you change town, you need to get a new attestazione di iscrizione anagrafica, because the attestazione di iscrizione anagrafica, like residency certificates, certificato di residenza storico, certificato di residenza, must have your current address on it. So this depends on whether you have your attestazione now, or you should apply now for the carta di soggiorno elettronica in Avellino, or if you don't have your attestazione, you are moving to Naples, you can just book an appointment with Naples as soon as you have your new address, of course, and you don't need to wait for your new attestazione in Naples. You can apply with other residency documents or with a autocertificazione, a self-declaration of residency. Let me say one thing about this autocertificazione. So if you write an autocertificazione, a self-declaration, it may take longer for the Questura to issue the card, because they have to verify if the self-declaration is correct. So they will get in touch with your comune, with your ufficio anagrafe, and they will ask if you are actually registered with them. So it may take longer for them to issue the card if you show them a self-declaration. Vede l'attestazione di iscrizione anagrafica o the residency certificate.
Okay. I've got a question from somebody who, Jenny says that her passport is in her married name, but all of her other documentation is in her original maiden name, and the questora don't quite know what to do in relation to the Carta di Soggiorno. I don't know. I don't know whether that's one where it would be useful for Jenny and us at the embassy and anybody else in the same position to have a chat. Possibly because obviously people's circumstances are all slightly different, but the name issue has come up already and will come up. And I think probably the best thing is Jenny, if you get in touch with the embassy or the consulate in Milan, then we can have a look at that with you. Okay. We've got a number of questions about which documents do we need in order to get the card. Certainly, once you have your letter confirming your appointment, on that letter it tells you what you need to bring. There's a list of 5 or 6 different things that you need to bring. We have heard of people being asked to produce extra documents, but certainly the letter sets out clearly what they expect of you. So I think once you've got that, you should be informed as to what you need to take.
Aidan, I'd also flag 2 things. One is the Italian government's guidance on the new card, which is published by the Ministry of Interior and is available in English.
Yeah.
And you can find it on our Living in Italy page. And that also says what documents you're likely to need to take along with you. And we've just published on our Living in Italy page our own detailed guidance on how to get the card as well. So before you book an appointment, it's definitely worth having a look at both those websites.
Great. Somebody's asking, Mark's asking if there's an example of the new biometric card so we can be sure we're getting the right thing. I think a handful have actually come out now, but only a tiny number. Is that right?
Our understanding is that there's one questora that has been used to sort of pilot the actual issuing of the card. So we are expecting the issuing of the card hopefully to happen, later this month. I think is the latest we have on that. But in terms of, a kind of sample I could show, we don't have one to hand. I mean, I would also say that it's a harmonised format. One of the reasons that Italy and all other EU member states are issuing this card is that it's going to be a harmonised format. So it's going to be the same format as the card that's issued in other EU member states. Obviously some of the details, the information on the card may be slightly different, but the actual format of the card and the different fields on the card and the way it looks is going to be harmonised across the EU. So, and that's a good thing in the sense that when you say travelling in the future around the EU, other member states should be very easy for them to recognise that you're someone who has rights under the withdrawal agreement.
And that's actually just dealt with a question from Helen, who says, will this new card avoid us having our passport stamped when we return to Italy? And we know obviously that border officials have already been asking people for it as they return to Italy. So it's as Jerry said, it establishes rights under the withdrawal agreement, and it's evidence obviously that you're a registered resident in Italy. So border guards shouldn't be stamping your passport if you produce that new card, but they shouldn't be stamping your passport if you produce other evidence of residence either.
Yeah, absolutely right. So all those documents that Giorgio's mentioned already during the session, take those along with you if you're thinking of travelling outside of Italy. Take your Italian identity card if you've got one. because you can only get that if you're a resident. And if you don't, if you don't have any residency documents, but you were lawfully living in Italy before the end of last year, take evidence of having been settled in Italy. You might have a work contract, you might have a rental contract, something that shows that you were settled in Italy. And if you can show that at the border, then, as you say, Aidan, you shouldn't have your passport stamped. Just quickly, sort of adding a bit to that, if your passport is stamped in error, don't panic. The very fact that you've got documentation showing that you're settled in Italy negates that stamp. So it has absolutely no impact on your rights in Italy. And next time you travel, show the border guard that evidence, whether it's a residency document, whether it's the new biometric card or an attestazione, and that will again negate the stamp in your passport. So although it can be upsetting to have a passport stamped in error, it doesn't impact your rights here in Italy if you're covered by the withdrawal agreement.
Thank you. Just to go back to basics again, because obviously some people have joined this event after your introduction, Jerry. Jane's just saying on YouTube, are carta di soggiorno from the Questura and permesso di soggiorno the same thing? The short answer is no.
Absolutely not. Two completely different things. The Carta di Soggiorno Elettronica is for UK nationals protected by the withdrawal agreement. The Permesso di Soggiorno is for third country nationals. Any other countries have nothing to do with the withdrawal agreement. So there are two separate cards issued by the same authority, of course, which is the Questura, but two separate documents. Sorry, can I just add that sometimes, even Questura, they call it Permesso di Soggiorno per cittadini britannici, for UK nationals. So I understand the confusion. The post office, they call it Permesso di Soggiorno because they just know the Permesso di Soggiorno for third country nationals. This Carta di Soggiorno Elettronica is a new document, so not many people are aware of this. So I understand the confusion. But it's called Carta di Soggiorno Elettronica and it's not the Permesso di Soggiorno for third country nationals.
Yeah, and I think, Giorgio, it's really important that you've underlined that because we know that some UK nationals have had issues whereby, again, third parties have asked them to show a permesso di soggiorno, so not the new one, but a permesso di soggiorno, and they don't have to show the new card and they don't have to show a permesso di soggiorno either, because as Giorgio says, it's not applicable to UK nationals covered by the withdrawal agreement. UK nationals arriving to settle in Italy, who aren't covered by the withdrawal agreement, will need a form of a permesso di soggiorno, but not the withdrawal agreement Carta di Soggiorno Elettronica that we're talking about tonight. So again, let us know if you've been told you can only do what you want to do if you hold a permesso di soggiorno.
Jerry, can I just clarify? Some British citizens who've been in Italy for a long, long time, might they have had a permesso di soggiorno years ago because the system was slightly different then? So historically, they might have been used to having a permesso di soggiorno.
I think it changed, and Giorgio, jump in here, but I think it changed around 2007. Originally, you did go to the Questura and get a permesso, and you got almost the same slip of paper to show a receipt with your photo pinned to it and so on, and then you got your permesso. Around 2007, it was changed, and you went to your town hall to get your attestazione or your attestato. That's correct, Giorgio?
Yes, and let me just add something on this, the confusion between Carta di Soggiorno and Permesso di Soggiorno. The form to apply for the Carta di Soggiorno Elettronica is still the form for the Permesso di Soggiorno. Sorry for the confusion. So the Questura, they don't have a dedicated form for the Carta di Soggiorno. They just use the one for the Permesso di Soggiorno. So some British nationals got worried because they read Permesso di Soggiorno on the form and said, no, I'm applying for the Carta di Soggiorno. But as long as you've paid for the bollettino and as long as you have asked for the Carta di Soggiorno Elettronica, there is nothing to worry about. That's the right document you are getting. I hope that we get a proper form in the future with Carta di Soggiorno on it.
And Giorgio, just to pick up on what you just said, the bollettino, there's a question from Matthew. The post office insisted that we have to make payment for the card using the Permesso di Soggiorno pink bollettino because it has the barcode already. This has been an issue which has come up a lot, hasn't it?
Hot topic so far. I've got actually a bollettino here. Surprise, surprise. I don't know if it's not clear, unfortunately, but we've got one on our Facebook page as well. So please check it. UK National Support Fund Italy. So actually, you should use a blank bollettino with the information provided on the vademecum. You can also use a pre-filled bollettino one, but the pre-filled one is for the permesso di soggiorno. Some questura accept both, some other prefer the blank one, some other questura prefer the filled one. So I understand again the huge confusion behind the bollettino. But from the circular from the Ministry of Interior, they specify that you must use a blank bollettino and fill it with the information provided on the vademecum. This is what? This is because the causale, the reference on the pre-filled bollettino is incorrect. So they say permesso di soggiorno for third country national. Whereas the causale, so the reference for the carta di soggiorno elettronica, specify accordo sul recesso del Regno Unito dall'Unione Europea.
And Giorgio, if you've used the pre-completed one, you shouldn't panic. That's fine. It's just that it might have been harder to get hold of, actually, because not all post offices have it. But it's still fine. It's just a shame.
It's still fine. We are cases the questura wanted the pre-filled one, despite this is incorrect because they have to accept the blank one. So it is, both are fine. What the Minister of Interior says is that you need to use the blank bollettino. The thing is, in the post office, they are not aware of the carta di soggiorno elettronica.
Yeah.
They only know the permesso di soggiorno for third country nationals. So as soon as you go to the post office and you ask for permesso di soggiorno or carta di soggiorno, they immediately give you the kit postale to apply for the permesso di soggiorno for third country nationals. It's not their fault. It's just they only know this permesso.
Yeah. Yes, of course.
But don't panic.
Yeah, exactly. And I was also asked recently whether you could pay online, but you can't. You have to fill in that slip and pay in person at the post office.
Unfortunately, we're still old-fashioned. Yeah, sorry about that.
We've had a couple more questions just about this issue of whether the card is compulsory, and we've also had somebody, Maureen, saying, is the card going to be a requirement for a citizenship application? I suspect the short answer to that is no, and certainly the question about whether the card is compulsory, it's definitely not compulsory, but it's likely to be very, very useful. Yes.
We have had some UK nationals report that when applying for citizenship, so they've got those 10 years of residency, because UK nationals as non-EU nationals will need 10 years of living in Italy, haven't already applied. When trying to do so, they've been asked to input a number of a permesso di soggiorno, so the one that is not applicable at all to withdrawal agreement UK nationals. That's not correct. So if you're being asked to show evidence that you've got a permesso di soggiorno as part of your citizenship application, that's not correct. You need to be able to evidence absolutely that you've been resident in Italy for 10 years or more, but you don't need to be holding a permesso di soggiorno, and you don't need to be holding the new biometric card. I think with some of these situations, we're seeing that it's the online system, Aidan, that's not set up to kind of recognise this special group of nationals, which are UK nationals covered by the withdrawal agreement, who actually can evidence their status by a whole load of different documents. So we're working really closely with the Italian government to see those online systems that can't manage you putting in something else. We're working really closely with the Italian government to see if we can resolve some of those issues. But no, you should not. Part of the citizenship application is not a requirement to hold this new carta di soggiorno elettronica. That's what we should call it throughout the session, shouldn't we? So that everyone's absolutely clear what we're talking about. Giorgio says it much better than I do, of course.
We just thinking about the permanent residents. James has asked, what evidence will the Questura need for the permanent 10-year card rather than the 5-year card? And he's saying basically, I don't particularly want to spend money on getting a permanent attestazione permanente if I don't really need to. do I need to? How do I ensure that I get the 10-year card when I am a permanent resident?
So, the best document is the attestazione di soggiorno permanente, because it proves that you've got permanent residency. You can also get different documents like the certificato storico di residenza, and we also have cases of UK nationals applying for the 10-year validity carta di soggiorno elettronica by showing the attestazione di iscrizione anagrafica, where there is the starting date of their residency, which was, of course, before more than 5 years. It is very, very important that if you've got permanent residency, you obtain a carta di soggiorno permanente, elettronica, valid for 10 years and not for 5. It is just the validity of the card, but it's important that you've got this card for 10 years. If you want to add something.
No, I was just going to say one of the reasons for that is, the rights aren't sort of different, but there is an important right, which is the right to be absent from Italy. Now, not many people are travelling at the moment, but that in the future you may want to leave Italy for a period of time. And as I said at the beginning, under the withdrawal agreement, if you're a permanent resident, you can leave for up to 5 years. So a nice, quick, easy way of showing that you are a permanent resident is by having the 10-year validity card. If you're having issues where you think you've got absolutely the evidence you need to show you're a permanent resident, but there, a questura is perhaps saying you can only get the 5-year card, definitely get in touch with ourselves or with IOM, because we have heard of some issues where the system doesn't appear to allow them to issue a 10-year validity because they're perhaps not putting in the correct information into the online system. So they're using the wrong terminology, and that might need just unpicking a little bit. So, if you are a permanent resident, as Giorgio said, you have a right to the 10-year card, not the 5-year card. But I mean, bottom line is the rights aren't only for 10 years or 5 years. It's just the validity of the bit of plastic. Yeah.
Helen's asking, if I get Italian citizenship, I'm currently a UK citizen only, do I still retain my withdrawal agreement rights? And do I need to change my residency to be linked to my Italian citizenship?
These dual national questions, they keep coming, and they're really good ones, because we've got lots of dual nationals in Italy. I mean, as I said at the beginning, if you take on Italian citizenship, you'll need to register your residency through your Italian nationality. It's a requirement, legal requirement in Italy, to change the way you've registered, and you need to register as an Italian national. If you previously enjoyed freedom of movement rights, which most dual nationals have because they moved to Italy at some point and stayed in Italy and gained citizenship by their residency in Italy, then you're still protected by the withdrawal agreement for as long as you remain living in Italy. Because you've also got UK nationality and you were living in Italy before the end of last year, you're protected by the withdrawal agreement. In a way, you don't really need your withdrawal agreement rights living in Italy because your rights flow from your Italian nationality, your EU nationality. And as Giorgio said, that also includes the right to vote in local European elections. You would enjoy also freedom of movement rights through your Italian nationality. But you also have withdrawal agreement rights via your UK nationality. And that's often sort of most relevant, for example, receipt of a UK state pension, uprated state pension, social security coordination purposes, aggregation of contributions. There are bits of the withdrawal agreement that you will enjoy through your UK nationality. But I think the key thing is make sure you re-register your residency with your Italian nationality, and that your rights in Italy really flow from that Italian nationality rather than your UK nationality.
Thank you. We've got a number of questions about the requirement from some Italian authorities for a card as compulsory for things like jobs. Gail talks about an employer stipulating that she has to have this card. Marian's talking about going to the local CUP to try and get a tessera sanitaria and being told can't do it without the card. So obviously, and we know that we've had inquiries into the embassy about these various issues. I wonder if it's possible just to cover that issue for people.
So just to be absolutely crystal clear, if you were lawfully living in Italy before the end of last year, so before the 1st of January 2021, so you were you were registered resident here, for example, you're a student, you were working here, you had a contract, you were self-employed, you're covered by the withdrawal agreement. The new Carta di Soggiorno Elettronica is not mandatory, but it gives you the best evidence of your rights. But it is not correct that your rights depend on holding that card. So if you are being told you can only, for example, renew your healthcare card, have your work contract renewed, perhaps access benefits from IMPS, register your work contract, your employer registering your work contract, even if you're protected by the withdrawal agreement and you're purchasing property, and your local notary says you need to hold that biometric card, there isn't, your rights, your status doesn't depend on holding that card. So we're very aware of these issues, as you say, Aidan. We've had UK nationals contact us, and it's really frustrating for those individuals. I mean, I'm sure it's incredibly challenging and probably pretty stressful. We're working really, really closely with the Italian government to resolve these issues. And as I say, I think some of this sits with online systems, so that, an online system asks either an employer or a local authority or a service provider to enter a number of a permesso di soggiorno, because as Giorgio said earlier, the systems see you as a non-EU national, and therefore you must be in Italy with a permesso di soggiorno. And of course, that's not right for people protected by the withdrawal agreement. So we need to keep working with the Italian government to see, get those issues resolved. But if you are struggling, if you feel that you're being asked to produce this card to access services, benefits, to have your rights recognised, get in touch with us, because we really need to know where these issues are happening. We need to hear from you. And to have examples of where people are having problems. So get in touch with us via our Living in Italy page. Right at the bottom, there's the email contact form. Get in touch with us. And by all means, when you get in touch with us, put at the top, I want to highlight that I've been asked to show a permesso di soggiorno or a biometric residency card, and I don't think I should be asked to show this, and I want to report it.
Yeah, please do.
And as soon as we've got more information, Aidan, as we see these issues resolved and we get more information and updates from the Italian government, keep checking our social media channels, keep checking our Living in Italy page, and we'll keep those updated. But we absolutely recognise that some UK nationals are having problems. So rest assured, we're really aware of these issues, and we're raising them with the Italian government.
Jerry, just wanted to add on, there was a question specifically on healthcare. As I explained before, we are already aware that the ministry has issued further guidance regarding this issue. And we know that the guidance has reached local health authorities, because I've been speaking to a number of offices these days. So you might want to try again, just to let them know that there is new guidance from the ministry. You are aware that the ministry has clarified that the biometric card is not obligatory. If you're still struggling, as Jerry said, get in touch with us through the Living in Guides, so we can engage directly perhaps with the local health authority and help you to resolve the issue.
And I think actually that's a really key point, Vita, that we can also engage directly with these service providers, with the third party. And so we're not just raising this with the Italian government sort of centrally. As Vito says, we can sort of engage on your behalf with where the problem is, where the problem lies, if that would be helpful.
Can I also add something on this? We also had some cases of UK nationals having troubles in requesting their Carta d'Identità Elettronica, their ID cards, with their municipalities, because the ufficio anagrafe were asking for the famous Carta di Soggiorno or Permesso di Soggiorno. So if you are registered with your municipality, You have the right to request the carta d'identità, so the identity card, without showing your carta di soggiorno elettronica. If you have troubles with your oceanographer, please get in touch with IOM and we will contact your oceanographer on your behalf to sort this thing. Okay.
Thank you. Maureen's looking ahead and saying, do we have any idea what happens with these new cards at the end of the 5 years or the 10 years? Is there automatic renewal? I suppose it's probably a bit early to say, given that it's a whole new system.
No, it's a really good question. You know, yeah, I mean, what I would say is, as I said earlier in the session, it's the card that runs out, not your rights. So as long as you remain living in Italy, lawfully living in Italy, you haven't lost rights because you've been absent for too long. Your withdrawal agreement rights are lifelong. So you know, let's see how the renewal of the card takes place, either after 5 or 10 years. But these are early days, and we're very engaged on the kind of initial process in getting the card and actually seeing the actual card get issued. You know, really working with the Italian government on that, and also looking at some of these issues where there's been a misunderstanding about the nature of the card. So, you know, a very valuable question, but we'll come back to you on that one.
Yeah. Somebody's asking a question about the receipt. Certainly in Rome, I was given a thin receipt with a picture stapled to it after my appointment, and that's what I'm going to present to the police when my card is ready. Somebody was saying, if you're not given a receipt, what does that mean? And does it affect your withdrawal agreement rights?
You should definitely receive a receipt, because it proves actually that you have applied for your carta di soggiorno elettronica. There is a reference number and also an alphanumeric number where you can check the status of your application online on the website of the Questura. So you should definitely get a receipt. If you haven't, you can get in touch with your Questura and ask for information. If you have troubles with them, please get in touch with us and we will contact the Questura on your behalf.
Okay.
But there's definitely not to fret if you haven't got a receipt. I mean, it's not like your rights fall away from you. It's just you're missing a bit of paper, and your rights are, you know, as we keep saying, your rights don't depend on the documents you hold. It's about your status that you were living here before the 1st of January 2021.
A couple of people have asked, when we get this new card, do we need to carry it around with us at all times, like, you know, the carta d'identità, as in a sense as a proof of ID?
I mean, I would say it's completely different to an identity document in that respect. It's evidence of your residency. So in the same way as you don't generally walk around with your residency attestazione, you know, I mean, the good thing about it, it's a little plastic card you can slip in your wallet. So frankly, it's probably best to keep everything in the same place and carry it around with you. But it's not a requirement in terms of sort of public security and being able to show your identity in the same way as having a proof of identity, whether it's a British passport or an Italian ID card that you have with you. So just to be absolutely clear again, they're two completely different documents. Yeah. The Italian identity card is completely different to the Carta di Soggiorno Elettronica.
And Andy asks about making the payment before the appointment with the Questura or not. The short answer to that is yes, you absolutely have to make that payment at the post office before you go to your appointment and get your bollettino stamped to confirm that you've made the payment. If you arrive at the Questura without having made it, I suspect that the appointment won't go ahead. Giorgio, you're shaking your head. I think that's right then.
You're right, Aidan. Yeah, you have to pay before attending your appointment with the Questura by using, of course, the blank bollettino.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nestle is saying that she and her husband have residency and ID cards issued in October last year. They've got a long-term rental on a house in Italy, but have international jobs, and they might need to be out of Italy for more than 6 months at a time. That potentially is a difficulty.
So this is about continuous residency. You know, Italy has a right to ask you to fulfill what's called continuous residency, which for those who don't have permanent residency means at least 183 days in a 365 day period. They don't have to be consecutive, so they don't have to be sort of in blocks. You know, those 183 days don't have to be consecutive, but you can't be absent for longer than that, because you would then lose your residency status. Now, obviously, there's a kind of follow-up question. Well, how does that happen in practice, and who checks, and how is that measured? I mean, that's the legal situation, and our advice is very much, be aware that Italy has a right to withdraw your residency status or not recognise you as an official resident anymore if you spend longer than 6 months in a 12-month period out of Italy as a temporary resident. And of course, if you lose your residency status, you would lose your withdrawal agreement rights, because your withdrawal agreement rights are linked to your residency status in Italy. So it's just something to be very, very aware of, sensitive to, and once you have permanent residency status, you can be outside of Italy for up to 5 years. But to get permanent residency status, you need to be living in Italy for at least 5 years, and each of those years they can check that you've made that 183 days and 365 for each of those 5 continuous years. So that's where they're likely to check it. If you're thinking of staying in Italy to get permanent residency status, you really, really need to make sure that each of those 365 days you haven't been absent too long. Yeah.
A slight diversion. Rosemary's asking about her son, who's a British citizen studying medicine in Rome. He started in October 2020. Is there anything specific he needs to do in terms of his residence in Italy?
Is he registered with the Comune? She doesn't mention this.
She doesn't say.
Okay. Okay, if he's registered with the Comune, like all other UK nationals protected by the withdrawal agreement, he can of course request the carta di soggiorno elettronica by showing the attestazione or other residency documents. If he's not registered with the Comune but has been lawfully living in Italy by the 31st of December, as I believe he is because he's a student, he can request the carta di soggiorno elettronica, but in this case he has to show evidence that he was lawfully living in Italy by the 31st of December 2020. As a student, it's pretty straightforward. He needs to show them evidence of enrollment letter from the university, say when he started the course and when he will finish it, and so on. So.
Okay, thank you. Mandy's saying she lives right on the border with France, and Nice is her nearest airport, so that's the airport she uses to go in and out effectively. Does showing the card mean that she will still be treated as European?
So just to be clear, UK nationals under the withdrawal agreement aren't European. UK nationals under the withdrawal agreement are non-EU nationals, unless, of course, you've taken on an EU nationality. If you're a UK national living in Italy, you're not European, but you have a special status under the withdrawal agreement. So you're a non-EU national, but your sort of legal status in Italy is under the withdrawal agreement. So I'm not quite clear on the question, but I suppose it'd be worth clarifying that the withdrawal agreement doesn't give you freedom of movement rights. So if you're protected by the withdrawal agreement, when travelling to other EU member countries, you still need to watch how much time you spend in those countries. So that 90-day and 180-day visa-free applies to you as well, even though you're covered by the withdrawal agreement. It's really important to be clear on that. But if you are crossing the French-Italy border, internal border checks within the Schengen area, you may not have anything checked at all. But if you do, as we said earlier in the session, if you've got the biometric card or you've got a residency document, you've got evidence of being settled in Italy, that will mean that your passport's not stamped when coming back from Nice airport back to your place of residence in Italy. But you'll still need to watch how much time you spend in other EU member states. Freedom of movement has ended for UK nationals when travelling around the Schengen area, even for those covered by the withdrawal agreement. So it's just worth underlining that.
And that ties in actually to a question from Louise, who says she works for an Italian company which involves working for some days each month in other EU countries. Will the card enable her to maintain that right? Well, I guess there's two questions. One is about if she's not yet a permanent resident in Italy, how many days a year she's out of the country? And secondly, how many days she spends at a time in other countries apart from Italy in the EU?
Yeah, it's worth checking without wanting to overcomplicate things. It's worth checking whether she also fulfills a frontier worker status. Frontier workers are people who are resident in one EU member state but regularly working in another, like every month, every week, one day in another member state. And if so, you may fulfill the status of frontier workers who enjoy the right under the withdrawal agreement. If you held that status before the 1st of January 2021, you're covered under the withdrawal agreement as a frontier worker, which basically means you can continue to be a frontier worker. So you can continue to do that same travel for your work without the requirement for a visa, for example. But you would need to check whether you fulfill the frontier worker status. And if you're resident in Italy, but you're regularly working, let's say in France, as a frontier worker, it's worth checking whether the French have made available what's called a frontier worker permit, which you would have to show the French that you're a frontier worker. But in Italy, you would have your residency document to show you're resident in Italy. For example, Italy has made available frontier worker permit for people who are resident elsewhere but regularly work in Italy as a frontier worker. But it's a very specific status, so you'd need to check whether you hold that status.
Yeah. Okay, I hope that's helpful. A question from Diana. What do you do if you move after you've received your new fancy carta di soggiorno?
Carta di soggiorno elettronica.
That one, yes.
You don't have to request a new one, of course. You can keep your fasci carta di soggiorno elettronica. You don't have to exchanging for a new one. But please bear in mind that if you change address, you need to communicate your new address to your new comune, to your new municipality by contacting the official anagrafe.
And will this new card have an address on it, or will it just be sort of embedded in the electronic records somewhere, and then it's changed when the comune change their records because you've been to them to?
We are not aware yet, unfortunately, because we still haven't seen a proper card. So I'm sorry, I cannot reply to this question either.
But essentially, if we move, then we deal with the comune.
You deal with
this
the
card. We deal with the questura, but if we move,
you have to communicate, of course, your change of address to the new comune. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know if you said, Georgia, I think it's within 20 days of moving, isn't it? So you need to be quite quick about it.
Quick.
It's definitely one of the first things you should do.
The sooner the better.
Yeah, once you've unpacked, definitely get along to your commune and notify them that you've changed.
We're just about at the end of the session. I'm conscious that we've had quite a lot of questions on both Facebook and YouTube about the challenges of getting hold of Milan Questura. I don't know if we've got anything we can say to encourage those people who are struggling to get hold of them and get appointments, because I think the PEC, the specific PEC, is not getting an answer, and of course the other way of contacting doesn't get you through to an appointment for this particular purpose.
Yeah, the only way is through PEC, the dedicated PEC address. I believe Milan has a large British national population, so I believe they have got more time and it takes longer to get an appointment with them. But definitely, if they don't reply to your PEC after at least, let's say, a month, get in touch with us and we will contact Milan and check if there is something going on with the Questura in Milan. But again, it's a large Questura with a large British national population, and it's a pretty new process, so it's understandable that there are some delays in replying. With the PEC, you receive confirmation that they've read and received your PEC. So keep these with you.
Yes, the PEC generates an automatic sort of acknowledgement, doesn't it?
The first one. The second one is that they've actually received it and and opened it. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're out of time. We haven't covered absolutely every question, but I'm conscious that there have been quite a number of questions that have covered similar subjects. So I hope that we've actually dealt with most people's questions, even if we didn't mention them by name, because obviously people are experiencing the same problems or have the same concerns about this whole process. Obviously, as the next couple of months roll on, we hope that the glitches will be ironed out and that people will be able to proudly grasp their new shiny biometric cards and feel reassured, obviously, that their rights are now well represented in the fact that they've got this card. But as ever, if people are finding they're having real difficulties, then of course, IOM are very happy to help, as are we at the embassy. And we would encourage you, if things really are not happening at all for you, not working at all for you, then for goodness sake, get in touch with us, because we want to see everybody duly provided with this card, all those who are entitled to it, so that their withdrawal agreement rights are, in a sense, proved by the fact that they've got this. And whilst it isn't compulsory, once again, it's probably worth saying it's likely to be a very good idea to get it. So please do. Okay, thank you very much, Giorgio, Vito and Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you for your questions. I'm sorry for those we didn't get to, but we will have further events like this, and we will do our best on those occasions to take as many questions as we possibly can. Thanks very much indeed, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Please stay on the line. Stay there. Stay there.